train!
The first thing I should say about Ghost was that it was the last show that we did at ILM that was based on traditional effects techniques. It was really sort of the end of an era. By that I mean traditional cell animation for effects and optical compositing.
The visual effects shots that ILM did were done in optical printers. This was at the transition period in the industry.
The computers they had back then were very expensive. And if I remember correctly, Ghost just did not have a big budget.
We were lusting for the digital realm.
When we first started talking about doing Ghosts, one of the problems is that you can't tie up the New York subway system while you do the film. They did do some footage in New York City, I think of trains leaving the stations as they came down the staircase, things like that. But eventually the decision was to do interiors, I think, in Hollywood, and then up here we would do all the miniatures.
As a visual effects cameraman on Ghost at ILM, I photographed a number of miniatures. There were live subway trains in New York. There were interiors done at Paramount inside the lot on a full-size set for the interiors with the actors and moving on gimbals.
Since our character had to go through solid surfaces, we had to shoot him separate from the surface. So there was a lot of blue screen photography where if his hand was going through a wall or a door, we would have to shoot him against blue screen, and then he would have to sort of mime the physical movement. What Jerry Zucker originally explained to us was that when a character passes through a surface, he absorbs that surface. He took a napkin and put it into a cup of coffee, and we watched the liquid absorbed onto the napkin, and he said, "That's what I want."
My picture is, if you're him, and I go through him, and I'm
so many of the scenes in this movie I have to do by myself with no actor. So when I follow Willie as he goes through this apartment, we rehearse it, get it down, the camera follows the movement, and then everybody goes away, except for me.
You son of a bitch!
See, to me it's more difficult because in a lot of scenes, Patrick is there as the ghost and I have to completely ignore him. So I think it would almost be easier for me if I was acting to nothing than having to ignore someone. Like, no, you don't exist. You don't. Yes, you do. No, you don't exist. Yes, you do. I see it right there, you know.
When the clickers came up, they called them that because you heard this noise, like these sort of snappy, clicky sounds. They sort of came out of the shadows. They were the shadows.
I love the idea that shadow was, in a certain sense, a way in which the darkness of life is somewhat inhabited. And that when someone dies, these shadows actually literally emerge as real forces. And they come into these globular forms and they envelop you.
Cisco. Yeah, then we cut this way. Then from there you cut to Rick Aviles, and he goes.
John Van Vliet was on set supervising when they would shoot those performances with the actors, and when we dragged Willie off, they knew they wanted him ass on the street and just racing off to a vanishing point sort of a thing.
We tried animating small puppets. The scale wasn't right, and so we ended up making this hybrid between a guy in a suit and stop motion and full size.
John had the idea to hire a mime, and I thought, great, a mime. Who doesn't like a mime? So he brings the mime in, and she was very giving, very willing to participate, but she didn't get the whole thing of stop motion. So even when the shutter was open, she was moving around and doing her bit. And it was like, no, you got to hold still when the shutter is open. You can only move for the 4 seconds that the shutter is closed, and she didn't get it.
It took a while for them to get those shadows right. I thought, oh no, we do all this work and they're gonna ruin it with lame effects. But everybody pulled together.
And I told John, I said, look, that costume will fit anybody. You put the damn thing on. And John said, well, I already got a job. You put the thing on. And I went like, yeah, okay. And I thought it was only going to be for like 1 or 2 shots. And I'll never make that mistake again.
From backgrounds I had shot on the actual set where they were doing the movie, I would duplicate that layout. And then I would have these guys move through that set 1 frame at a time in white, and later we would turn that into black. So everything is reversed.
It's like high-end Tai Chi, because you can't move fast. Everything had to be meticulous and slow motion. It's like the way they do stop-motion puppets, like when they did Gumby, only you're the puppet.
It's so powerful, and it's scary because it's not natural. It's not what we normally would experience with human form.
The great fun of doing this stuff is you get these pieces and you kind of think, how the heck am I going to do this? And then some days or weeks later you get it together and you see these shots and it absolutely look like that you were there.
2, 3, 4.
Let's turn the lights up.
We turn on the lights? I don't think we need it.
Yeah, it'll be right.
People are pretty good with hell. They have a pretty good idea of what hell looks like, and with a lot of experience of touching those elements in human life, heaven has always been harder.
They had let this go and hadn't addressed this end sequence and didn't have much time. In fact, I think there was only something like 6 weeks or something like that, or 8 weeks left. So I pitched the idea of doing it in digital video.
Edlund had shot some little, just footage of light, really, basically, and put it on the computer. And on the computer, the guy could say, well, do you want it longer? Do you want it brighter? Do you want it fatter? Do you want it more dense? I could just play with it, and I could look at it, and I could say, push it here. Can you add some sparkle here? Make it diffused here, but more solid there, and whatever, So that was fantastic.
When she kisses him in the scene, actually he's a video element and she's a VistaVision element, so it's like film kissing video. It's actually a very good experience for all concerned, and Jerry was very happy with the end product, and it was very beautiful, I thought.